Welcome to this episode of the Corporate Bull, where I sit down with global founders, leaders, and entrepreneurs to uncover what it's really like to operate at the highest level. Today we're here with Karim. Thank you for joining us. You're the CEO of Kolpin Hotels and board member of countless companies, and also founder/owner of Roberta Society, if I say that.
Yes, Roberta Society.
Roberta Society. Thank you for joining us. For the people who don't know, who are you and what is Kolpin Hotels?
I'm today a 60-year-old hotelier. I have been working in hospitality for all my life, and I'm very excited about the whole business, the whole lifestyle, the development within tourism. So I am really into hospitality, and the last 4 years I've been CEO of Kolpin Hotels, where we own and operate both on one side luxury hotels, 5-star luxury hotels, and on the other side we have just founded a new company with a new hotel brand in the budget segment, where it is a hostel, but it's more a house of culture with the possibility of staying overnight. So we are fusioning a hostel stay with the food, beverage, culture, music, stand-up events, and a long line of opportunities. And it's a concept that we hope to roll out in both Denmark but also Europe. So we are looking at different locations for Roberta Society.
Let's jump straight into it. What is the biggest challenge you faced when creating this new concept and this new idea of Roberta Society?
You always, when you develop a concept, you very often dream, and sometimes dreams come through and sometimes they don't. And I think the biggest challenge we have right now is to tell people about all the opportunities that you can do as a local, because we see a great interest from guests coming from groups, school classes, sports groups, also business individuals, conferences. But what we still need to work on is how do we get the local people from Aarhus to find out our space, because there are a lot of opportunities to hang out, to have a beer, have wine, have food. We have something we call fællesspisning, community dining, where you can have a dinner at 99 kroner. You can sit together with other people after the dinner. You can play games, and so we have a lot of opportunities. So right now, the biggest challenge is to convince the local Aarhus student, Aarhus people that we have this spot.
Yeah, it's always the locals that are the hardest, right? To get
It's super hard.
in everything, right?
Yeah. It's super difficult. Yeah.
So what about Kolpin Hotels now? How do you manage the time on Roberta Society and Kolpin Hotels?
We have the last 4 years we've been building the company to grow. So today we have a strong organization that takes care of all the basic lines. We have a strong commercial department who is organized so that they work with both the Hotel Sanders, Helene Kile Badehotel on the luxury side, and on Roberta Society on the budget side. And then locally we have general managers at all hotels who takes care of the daily operations. So you can say that I more and more work with the business development, with the opportunities of developing our different brands, because we want to expand the Sanders Hotel and Sanders Residence into another city in Europe, and Roberta Society in first of all in Copenhagen.
Let's get a little bit more into the board member role that you also play on the side. You're a board member of Solo KO.
I was, yes.
You was, and DG-byen.
Yes,
and
I still am.
Cruise Denmark.
Yes.
What are these roles in these board members and these board member, communities, kind of? What do they teach you that your CEO role doesn't teach you?
Being in a board is a different leadership task, because that's where you create the direction, the strategies, the governance, and how you want to run how you want the CEO to run the company. So I can use a lot of my CEO experience to come with valuable input to the board, but also to create an environment for the CEO to spar different areas, because I have my own 23 years of CEO experience. So I think that it gives me an opportunity to see things from the board side, because that also helped me in my CEO role. How and what does the board, what is it they want, and how do they want it? How detailed do they want it? But I think the most important thing it teaches me is that a board is 6 to 8 people with different background, but also different personalities. So when you are a CEO, you need to navigate the different personalities in the board, the different opinions, and the different understandings of for example, the commercial areas. So it helps me to learn how does a board work, and how do you get it in, how do you get to serve this in the perfect direction. That it teaches me a lot to sit in boards, and I hopefully can add some value to them too.
Yeah. And how do these situations happen? Because I personally don't exactly know how you become a board member. I know you have, of course, expertise and 20 years old, more than 20 years of experience. But how did you, for example, of DG-byen, how did you become board member in DG-byen?
It's a good question, because it's something that you grow into, or something that you do not grow into. And I had some opportunities many years ago, being in advisory boards and coming into different boards, but local boards within tourism. So I learned to work in boards through free boards, so to speak, where you actually just get into the board, and you have the opportunity to help there. And then I got the interest of working in boards, because I think it's very interesting to see a company from that side. And the more boards you work in, the more interested you get, the more interesting you get to other boards, because you have the experience. So with the DG-byen, I was headhunted from a headhunting company. So that's how I came into that one. And actually the same with Copenhagen Zoo. That was the same. So now I've been in DG-byen for 8 years almost. And Copenhagen Zoo, I was in for almost 8 years also.
Impressive. That's a long time. And also because and many young people, right? They don't really understand what a board member actually is. So can you quickly explain what is a board member actually, and what do they do in practice?
A board has the legal responsibility for the company living up to the governance that you have to as a company. So as a board member, you have to be aware of that, because you are responsible for whatever happens to the company. So there's a very big responsibility, and a very important part is to have a clear idea of what your role in that board is. For example, my role is very often to develop the commercial strategies and the service strategies, the product development, the concept development. So it's important that you know your role and where you have to add value. But I think the most important part of being part of a board is to understand your responsibility, because if you don't understand that, you might not be able to understand the consequences if something goes wrong.
Let's get back to the CEO role that you play. For someone who wants, because many people see CEO as the aspire to be a CEO and see CEOs as the top of the game, right? It doesn't get much, much more successful than that. For someone who wants to be a CEO, what would you say they should focus on to become top management?
I think one of the most important parts is you need to be interested in developing people, because being a CEO is about, of course, developing a company. But if you cannot develop people and work with people and create leadership in that company, then it's very difficult to be a CEO. So you have to be interested in people. You have to be interested in working many hours, especially when you're on the path, towards the title. And then when you get the title, you understand that it's hard work every day, because so you have to be very dedicated, and you really have to want it, because it's a lot of hours, and it's in periods of life it's very stressful. So you really have to want it. I would say that, and you really have to want to create something special within that sector. And if you want that, I think, and you want to do the hard work, I think it's a good goal to have. But it is hard work, always.
And on your path, what was a decision or some decisions or some moments that made you took a leap in that path to becoming CEO?
In my path, it was things just happened on the way, because I was actually not when I say forced, I say it with a positive mindset, because I actually didn't have the ambitions of being a CEO, but I had ambitions. I just didn't know when I was young where would those ambitions bring me. So I had these giant jumps sometimes where, for example, when I was 28 years old, and I was a sales executive sales manager at Scandic Hotels, and we have had these two CCOs, commercial directors, and they both failed. They both failed, and I was called in to the CEO's office one day, and I just turned, I think it was 28 or 29. I just got my first kid, and then he said, "You're going to be the new director of sales. So you're going to have and marketing. So now you have the responsibility for the sales, the marketing, and PR at Scandic Denmark. From one day to another, operating 20 hotels, and literally with no experience, no leadership experience." So that was, I took these jumps, and I also took some chances, saying yes, and okay, I'll do that. And so I had these jumps on the way, and then, I took the chances when they came, I would say.
So you catch the opportunity when they came? Or
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
So you didn't,
I have always done that.
And that's also, I think, a big factor in many people also become CEOs and top management, a board member, and so on and so on. That when opportunity come, they're ready for it and they take it.
Yeah.
And don't leave it and don't maybe it's too early, too late, to this, but they actually would take initiative and actually take it, that chance.
Exactly. You have to take some chances, and you're on deep water. You know, you're in really deep water when you start in a position like that, because you don't know, everything you do takes a really long time. You know, it takes so long because you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to make people satisfied. You don't know how, the real network works in that zone and of leadership. And so everything takes so long time. So you work so many hours when you
So
get
when
these
you were just
chances.
announced CCO, like you told before,
Yeah.
in Scandic Hotels, how did you handle that pressure? Because I imagine, again, 20 hotels, it comes with a lot of pressure, a lot of, how did you handle that situation?
I think I think I have never been scared of working a lot, and I have always known that it demanded a lot. So and then I think the best education I got was actually when I finished high school. I went out as a tour guide, and my plan was to be out for 2 seasons, but I ended up being out for 10 seasons. So both being a tour guide and a destination manager and all that. So for 5 years, I had worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, on summer destinations and winter destinations, taking care of charter tourists. So I was in a way in a situation where I had learned that if you wanna if you wanna achieve all these things, you only have 24 hours a day, and of those 24 hours, you have to sleep 8 hours. So I have 16 to take care of my family, raise the kids, and do my career. So so um, so I think that's very important when you're young and you're getting the chances, is that and then you have to cope with the stress,
Mm.
of course, and the pressure, because it's there, and you just have to see if you can cope with it. You don't know if you can cope with it before you're there, and at that time, 30 years ago, you had to do a presentation, strategic presentation, even though you didn't know what the word meant. So you had to do the presentation, at 7 in the morning, and you had done your slides. At that time, it was slides you had to do, at 2 at night, and yeah. So yeah, you have to cope with it.
And what's the best way to cope with that pressure and to handle that pressure in your expertise? What's some tools or some stuff that you could do that would help with that pressure?
You have to have the backup. If you're raising kids at the same time, you have to have the backup to be able to do your job, first of all. And second of all, I think it's very important that you get the rest in the weekends. You make sure you make sure that you find out, how do I rest sometimes, because you have to rest. And if you have a long period, you can have a period of 3, 4, 5 months where you have to work a lot. Then that, okay, then after those 3 or 4 months, then I have 2 weeks of vacation, or I have 1 week of vacation. I have 1 week, where I can rest and take off. So I have always worked in that way, that I have, if I know that I have a lot, I I I I plan when I can be off, or when I can, hit the brakes a little bit,
Mm.
and that has helped me a lot. Planning the year, but that's something that you learn, because it's not something you can do when you get that job for the first time. It's something you learn. So in the first 5 to 8 years, it's a tough school.
And you have been in the hospitality industry for a lot of years, right?
Yes.
And when did you first realize this was the industry for you?
I realized it when I came into hotels, when I was about around 26. So when I came into the hotel sector and the hospitality part of it, I found out that was a place for me, because I think it's hotels is a lot more than receptions. People tend to think that, okay, how difficult can it be to be in a hotel? But it's actually a lot of stuff. So I fell for it very early, and I had my breakouts to different other jobs, but I returned into hotels and have been working with hotels and hotel properties for 30 years now.
And what's the part about hotels that you love?
First of all, I'm very excited about the whole service part of it, because service is something that is very easy, but it's also something that's very easy to do difficult.
Mm.
So working with high service levels is actually, when you have something like 30 touch points. So from a guest do the reservation to they check out to they leave the hotel, you have approximately 30 touch points that has to be perfect. And that journey has always excited me. How can we come as close to 10 out of 10 in all touch points? So the whole service part of it is for me very interesting. And 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 to master those touch points, you need to lead people. Okay, so how do you lead people when the 30 touch points is made by 20 different people? So how do you make sure that all 20 different people, they have the same attitude, the same level of service, the same level of outgoing personality, and the same level of follow up if we meet problems? So I think the whole strategic way of working with high level service is something that I'm very interested in.
And what do you think is the most effective way to lead and the best way to lead?
It's very difficult, but I believe that within our industry, it's super important that all the basics have some clear guidelines, and then you need to have a bunch of really good education, because you can't demand that everybody can be on the same high level without teaching them and explaining them how do we work here in this company, because it depends. It really depends on what kind of company it is. And if you are in a high level company, as I'm leading, then you really need to educate in the high level of service. And service is not only one-to-one service. Service is also what is on the plate. I mean, when you create a menu, how does it look on the plate? How is it served? Because the service also comes from the kitchen. So the cooks and the chefs and everybody behind the scenes, the housekeeping, they are also part of the service. So everybody has to understand that even though they don't meet the guests, they are part of the service, because the service is also on the plates, or how the bed is made, or how the minibar is closed, and all that. So it's about guidelines. It's about education. It's about having mid management who really understand how to coach and react when we see something that is not the right way. We need to react and say, in a polite way, teach in how that everybody can do it better.
And hospitality is often seen, as you said before, as only this service work. What do people misunderstand about the industry and the hotels?
Unfortunately, I think we in hospitality tend not to tell everything about the story, because I think that we're missing that we actually have really interesting. We are actually really interesting business to join if you want to work with real estate, if you want to work with company agreements, with lease agreements, with management agreements, with real estate buy, operational companies. So you might start in the operational part of it in the reception area, but that is an advantage that it's almost needed that you start somewhere where you can learn about the basics of how do we create satisfied guests, because they need to be happy for the company to grow. But when that's said, you can actually, as an individual, you can grow in a lot of different directions. You can work with corporate sales, you can work with corporate marketing on a very high level. You can work with concept development. You can work with the whole real estate area. You can work with the whole operational company area. So it's I would love the hospitality industry to be more interesting for the business schools around Europe. So we have some hospitality schools, but it could be fantastic if hospitality could be a more interesting place to come after being in Copenhagen Business School, for example.
And how do we make it more attractive for people coming out of Copenhagen Business School or other universities?
It's a very, very good question, because I think that we would have to work in a totally different way. The big hotel chains should go in and take sponsorships and do sponsorships and try to make our business attractive. But I think the biggest problem is that we are, when you start in our business, we do not have especially high salaries. And if you go into private banking or private equity or all these places, the little bit more sexy places, so to speak, then they get a high salary from day one. It's you can brag a little bit about it, and we're not sexy enough to work with just after going to the university. So it's not before later on when they find out that we're okay. This is really interesting. We like the culture. We like our business is very young. So the average age in our company is like 30 years old. So and you get a lot of opportunities. And in hotels, in the hotel business, you can actually grow if you want to have work with leadership. You can grow very fast because there's so many opportunities all the time. So but I think it's our own fault in the business. We're simply not alert and agile enough towards the universities.
Yeah, because also some would say it is a old school industry in that way. I'll also come back to a little bit later how you manage to integrate tech and AI, because that's a lot about the future. That's the main part about the future, right?
Yeah.
Into that. But quickly, how do you balance the guest experience, which is one of the most important parts, if not the most important part, with also it needs to be a business, it needs to be run around and the profit?
A really good question, because we live off a company like ours. We live off the creating exceptional guest experiences. So what is a guest experience, first of all? So if you take all our hotels, we cover the whole spectra of check in. You can dine. You can drink. You can have meetings. You can actually stay at our properties for 24 hours, because there's things enough to do, and we offer the whole palette. And beside that, the design for us is a very, very big part of the experience. So what kind of environment do you come into? Is it a nice, cozy, homey environment where you actually want to stay, where we create, happy people? If they want a beer, we make sure that it's our own beer, or wine, it's our own wine, our own family wines. So we try to everything we do, we try to create an experience of something that we have done for them, which we're actually using a lot of time on. And we have our own home collection with soaps and shampoos and everything. We have our own wine collection. We're having our own snaps collection. So we're trying to create a product that also create experiences. So it's and when it comes to profit, it's that part is as difficult as anything else you can say, but everything is on calculation. So if you are at a more expensive environment or a 5-star environment where you go into the cocktail bar, and a glass is not just a glass. A glass is something that you have bought from a supplier with a very, very high quality. So it's not 5 kroner for the glass as it would be at a really low cost hotel. It might be a 70 kroner glass. So everything is about pricing the right things. But when you have found the right price point, if you then can deliver the quality, then people don't have any problems in buying things that are 50% more expensive than at another hotel. So everything is about reaching the right price points, and then beside that, selling some volumes.
And how do you handle, because there's so many aspects, as you described now, and so many details of hotels and hospitality industry. So how do you manage as a CEO that all of these small details are made to perfection, are made to not perfection, but close to?
This is teamwork. This is teamwork on a very high level, because of course all the things never always work. But as an ambitious company towards ambitious guests, we're trying to organize ourselves so that we get things to work. So you have the whole room section. They work on how do we meet the guest expectations, in the rooms, in the hallways, in the lobby areas, and all that. And then you have the whole F&B development, which is quite big with us because the food and beverage is a big thing for us. So we have a whole team developing the whole drink and food experience. And when that is developed, everybody's involved in how do we want to serve it. When it's room service, how do we do it there? When it's in the bars, how do we do it there? On the street and so forth. So we have an organization that has the responsibility for the area, but also to make sure that they're educated in everything that we do and everything that we want the guests to experience. So it's a very detailed work, and it's very difficult to lead. It's very difficult, but it's if you have the right people, which I think I have, we're getting closer to being perfect.
And as we talked about before, about attracting people from CBS, for example, coming business school, what skills from finance and operations and marketing are highly valuable in hospitality?
If you take if you take the financial part, it's something that we work with quite, not to misunderstand, but quite easily, because we work with an accountant company. When it comes to the marketing part of it, that is where serious skills are demanded when you work with a lifestyle brand, as I represent. So the marketing department in our company is very skilled, very skilled, very high educated, and they have to know everything about how are we being visible on the new in the new AI lines, in the old Google lines. How are we attractive on all social media platforms? How do we work with it? How do we look? Because it doesn't matter if we're Hotel Sanders or we are Roberta Society. There's a red line in our look. How do we look? So if you look at the pictures are totally different, but you can see there's a red line in the brand through the pictures. So when you work with the whole marketing part of it is quite complicated to get that, to find that red line into every aspect that we do, so that our customers, they can see, okay, I'm going to Kolpin Hotels. I'm coming into their budget. I'm coming into their budget product, but it's Kolpin Hotels, so I know, even though it's a budget product, I know it's very high quality. Even though I'm having a meeting for 20 people at Roberta Society, it's just a lot cheaper than if I go to Hotel Sanders. But the product, quality-wise, is is always high quality. So if you're going to Sanders at a 5-star product, you get a 5-star product. If you're going to Roberta Society, you get a high quality budget product. So we always try to to communicate that, and that's why I think the whole marketing part is 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 um, is one of the most difficult parts to get to work, because when you have created a new menu, or you have created a new drinks menu, or you have created a new home line, marketing have to translate that into our language, into our brand language. So we look exactly as we have to look at all the different properties. So, we have a beach property, we have a city location in Copenhagen, and we have a budget hotel location in Aarhus. And brand wise, everybody has to see that there's a red line in, this is a Kolpin hotel. So that's the difficult part.
And how do you handle this marketing aspect at Kolpin Hotels? Because there's so many parts, and you also have to keep the red line, right? So important, and I would say one of the most important parts about also building a brand in general, not only hotels, but just in general, keeping that red line in everything you do. So how do you attract customers, and how do you keep being relevant, and how do you follow the trends in Kolpin Hotels?
Alexander Kolpin, our owner, he is the creative director of our company. So he is leading and managing together with our commercial director and our marketing manager. So they are very close, and they talk a lot about very, very little details all the time. How do we stay relevant, for example? What is our next move? What is happening in 12 months? What is happening in 6 months? How do we make sure that all the things that we have done, that they are still relevant, and still um, the right thing for us as a brand? So they work together, and I'm also personally very involved in our whole brand development. So it's something that we use, and I said it before, we are a lifestyle hotel brand. That part is very, very important for us. So we spend a lot of time, to fine tune our brand. I would say on an everyday basis.
And for entrepreneurs, do you think the hospitality industry is a strong industry to be entrepreneur in and to start, for example, a hotel?
Yes and no. It's yes, because there's room for a lot of improvement. Because, and why is that? That's because it's so difficult to start a hotel. Because how do you get the hotel? How do I get a hotel? Because everybody knows that you most probably have to get more than 50 rooms, to have a kind of a business. And how do I get 50 rooms? How do I pay the rent? How do I maybe buy the building? So it's very, in my book, it's very difficult to be entrepreneur in our business unless you come from home with a bunch of money and somebody helps you to buy a hotel and give you some money for the development, and then you have to do the right development to attract the right customers. So it's kind of difficult to be entrepreneur, coming just without anything. But some people made it. Hilton made it. Started Four Seasons. These guys, Conrad Hilton and I don't remember the name of the founder of Four Seasons. He's still alive. The founder of Four Seasons started with one hotel. He was a carpenter. So I tend to think it's more difficult today because there's a different kind of competition. But I admire that at that time he was an entrepreneur in our business, and today Four Seasons might be a hotel chain of 2,000 hotels, or I don't know how many, but
A lot.
a lot.
Where do you see the biggest opportunities in tourism and hospitality today?
Now, in tourism, I see the biggest opportunities in the mid market. Just getting more and more money, because people earn more and more. More and more countries, they modernize, they create jobs, and they create some kind of welfare. They create, so more and more people can have a salary, and people want to travel. Everybody want to travel. Everybody want to see different places. So where I see the biggest opportunities is that, especially third world countries, Asia, but also South America and even North America, they earn more and more money. So, there'll be more and more people for the luxury segment, but also more and more people just traveling. So I think that tourism has a great future. I think that it's just going to grow, and it's going to grow a lot. Depends a lot on the whole airline industry, but if they can follow, I think this has no roof.
And on the topic of change, now AI is everybody talks about AI, and AI is in everything and everywhere. So how are hospitality integrating AI, if they are integrating AI?
Hospitality tends to be a little bit slower than everybody else, and has always been. I think it will still take a little time before AI will be integrated in, real integrated. But we see the bigger hotel companies having chatbots and all that. The interesting thing, I think, is that they still have their manual reservations departments. And 20 years ago, we said, in 5 years there will be no reservations because people just send a mail, and you will just have employees responding on emails, or they will book their hotel online. But that's not the case. So you still have big reservations departments, handling voice requests, people calling in, can I book a room tonight? Which is very surprising to me. So I tend to think that I don't know where AI will take our industry. If it's in reservations or check-in, check-outs, and payments, that is a very developed area right now. So just 5 years ago or 6 years ago, everybody would come and check in, at the desk, check out, and pay. But today, at our hotels, we are very far with every guest can check in, check out, and pay on the mobile phone. They can get the key on the mobile phone, and at a place like Roberta Society, where we have an average age of 30 years old, 90% uses this service. So everything is ready when they come. So they don't have to queue up and be in line and all that. But of course, AI will take this industry somewhere else. I must say that I think it's super difficult to say where it will take us and under how much pressure we are in developing technologies, because it should never come from a small company like ours. Then you have to go to Marriott and Hilton and those guys they have to be first movers on this, I think.
And what will separate the best hotel brands from the average ones in the next 10 years?
You can actually see the development because the big, if you take the big hotel brands again, Hilton and Marriott and those, they today have 30, 40 hotel brands within their loyalty programs. And many people want to find this little hidden gem. They want to find this little beautiful homey hotel in this little back street of a city or a countryside or a seaside hotel. And at the same time, they want to be guaranteed the comfort, the high service levels, and all that. So I think that the brands, they will grow bigger. I think they'll grow bigger, and I think that the brands will create sub-brands where they either joint venture with brands like us, or they buy brands that can compete with us. Because the lifestyle brands, they can never, the big brands can never copy a lifestyle brand. They think they can, but they get too automized. They get too static. They get too robot-like. So I think that there will be space for the big brands, but I think the lifestyle brands will be huge winners in the future, because I think that's where people dream of staying. These small, nice places.
Now it's time for the rapid fire round, as I like to call it. So just either or, and then we have finishing question, which we'll get to. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Boutique hotel or large chain?
Boutique hotel.
Luxury or efficiency?
Luxury.
Data or intuition?
Intuition.
Risk or stability?
Risk.
Expansion or optimization?
Expansion.
Best leadership trait?
Transparency.
Describe your entire career in one word.
Fun.
Finish the sentence. Success is. And this you can answer in more words.
When you can be something for other people that they remember as either being helpful or teaching or in a way where you have achieved something, to when you help other people. I think that's for me a big part of the success.
If you could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be?
3 people?
3 people.
I would definitely have a dinner with Mike Tyson. I would have a dinner with Muhammad Ali, for sure.
There's a theme.
Yeah, there's a theme, right? And then I think it could be nice to have a dinner with Michael Laudrup.
And why did you choose those 3? And those 3 also are athletes.
Yeah, they are athletes. First of all, since I saw Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle in 1974, my first fight I ever saw, I was 9 years old. I just fell in love with that sport, and I don't know why. People say, okay, how can you? Because they're hitting each other. So Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali is in that category, and I think Michael Laudrup is the ambassador of Denmark, and I just think that it could be fun to have a dinner with him.
If you could be remembered for one thing, what it would be?
I would like to be remembered to be kind.
If you could give your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
That would be patient.
Karim, thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure. And remember, nothing is impossible.